fucking intro always freaks me out. Howdy, everybody. Yeah. I am Uncle Bill, and as you can see, I am not alone. I am joined forever at the hip by the mighty, creepy Kentuckian.
How you doing, everybody? Sir? It's good to be on your show, Uncle Bill. Tuesday and Fulci goes just hand in hand, like CK and UB.
That's right. Holding hands.
Yeah.
Touching me. Touching you.
I got a special spot you can touch with your toe.
No, I'm not doing it. I told you.
Why? We both got Halloween shirts on, though. You know,
isn't that weird? Yeah. This wasn't planned either. We want to do a fucking Fulci show with Halloween shirts on, but here we are.
Well, it's not the same Halloween. At least there's that.
That's true. So here's an interesting connection about this particular show that we're getting ready to do, which I call the Fulci slasher era, even though, you know, several people have pointed out that New York Ripper is a giallo, which to me, New York Ripper was always a slasher. Like, I looked at it more like that than I did a giallo. But Jacob is sitting here telling me that that's bizarre, that somebody's going to shit on my chest. It's possible. Anyway.
I don't think that'd be allowed here on YouTube.
No, we don't do that here. So
we couldn't monetize the video then for sure.
I tell you why I think that this is the perfect show for you to be on, though, is because I'm pretty sure that the first time I ever saw New York Reaper was with you, and I'm also pretty sure that the first time I ever saw Cat in the Brain was with you, because I think that you got both those like right around the same time.
Unfortunately, I only got to watch one of the movies, but I did try to watch a couple of little clips and stuff of the other one to get caught up, and I think I made the wise decision on the movie to actually rewatch, because there's one of these movies that's basically, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's just pretty much a compilation of death scenes.
Yeah, that's true.
That's basically
it really is. Like, and it's a lot of different movies that Fulci had done in the past, mixed with some new stuff that he recorded and just spliced in a bunch of death scenes. But for some reason, to me, I still think that movie is great for different reasons than the New York Ripper is great. But both these movies are unique. Like, I had forgotten like how unique these two movies are, actually. Like, they're both completely different, but they're both like kind of groundbreaking in a way. Like, New York Ripper's groundbreaking for probably like all the wrong reasons, because like it's so violent and sadistic towards women. Like, it's amazing, like how if you watch that now, because I just watched it like yesterday, if you watch it again today with the way things are today, like a movie like that would absolutely get eviscerated if they tried to come out with something like that today. It was just
a different time. They shot a lot of the movie in New York City. New York City was way different in the early 80s than it is now. But yeah, I mean, there's some of the death scenes with the women and all that. Yeah, I don't think they'd be able to do that in 2022, Uncle Bill, without getting an X rating or whatever.
We'll get into that. Probably not in a lot of detail, because we'd probably get kicked off of YouTube if we got into it in a lot of detail. But it's insane to watch that movie back today. Mm-hmm. And actually, like, some of the stuff from Cat in the Brain, I don't think you could ever do today either. So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
But let's get a head count of some people that have started on the chat already. So we got Joe Stradamus is in here.
Oh.
Of course, the ever popular Old Curly Jaws is here.
Old Curly Jaws postponed his show. He was supposed to do a show tonight, but he didn't want to compete with DEADPIT, so he's postponed it to Thursday night.
Well, I appreciate that, Curly Jaws. Bradley Taylor's in here telling us good night and then hello, which is an interesting approach.
You say good night. I say hello.
Say hello. Jacob Ennis, which has he been in any of these? Like, lately?
Not lately. I don't think so. Unless
So
he
it's good
was just a random Facebook user. Like there's one person that says, "Uncle Bill, give us a thrill."
Yeah, man. So we got the mayor.
What are
Quack
you the
quack.
mayor of, sir? I like your hat.
We got Manic Exorcism, who's awesome as always. And I
Old
agree with
school.
you. We'll get into this soon, though. Cat in the Brain is so odd, but you have to love it. That's true.
Def-
Dirk, of course, Dirk is in here with us.
Welcome, sir.
See, he kind of agrees. He says it has both elements of a slasher and a giallo.
Well, essentially, I mean, a giallo is not very different than a slasher, really. I mean,
No.
it's the same sort of idea. It's just a mystery, murder mystery.
And of course, the amazing Facebook user. We can't ever see who they are. But if you post your name, I will definitely.
Yeah, or if you just go over on the DEADPIT.com Facebook page, you can post on there and we'll see who you are. It's only on the groups that it does that on for whatever reason.
It's bizarre to me. Jonathan Lundy's in here. He understands that we are the ballers and shot
Yeah,
callers.
we had a big tournament a couple of nights ago with Jonathan.
Oh, was he in the 64
Yeah, the elimination tournament.
Elimination Chamber?
Yeah, which was, there was some odd picks in that, but what can you do?
We
A lot
got.
a lot of people shitting on the Hitcher, and I don't appreciate that.
No, I don't either. Jared Strupler.
Hello, Stroopler, you dickhead.
The Bunk. God, we got all kinds of people in here. All right. So which one do you think we should start with? Do you want to do them like chronologically by the year they came out, or?
Why, yeah, that'll work.
All right. So for the people that don't own these movies, I'm going to tell you like the editions to buy for certain. The ultimate edition, so to speak. So I think this is the one that me and you both got, isn't it?
Right.
This is the lenticular
mine at?
version.
Yeah, and they've since upgraded to, they have a 4K version of this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know what the price difference is. If the price difference isn't very much, get the 4K
Not that
version.
much. Yeah, it's not really that much now.
This one comes with the, it's a 3-disc. It comes with a DVD, a Blu-ray, and the soundtrack. So I think the 4K just comes with the 4K disc. I don't think it comes with all the bonus stuff.
You know, after seeing like Zombie though and House by the Cemetery and things like that in 4K from Blue Underground, I'd kind of like to see what New York Ripper looks like.
I can't imagine it's going to look a whole lot better than this. Looked unreal. Like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's insanely like detailed for the. It came. This movie came out in '87, I believe.
No, it was
No, it came out in '82. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Early 80s.
Why the hell I thought about '87, but yeah.
Yeah, Fulci was making like Demonia and shit by that point in time.
Well, yeah, Cat in the Brain comes out, I think, in '90, so he was definitely like moved on quite a bit from New York Ripper.
Now, before we get into the movie, though, New York Ripper was one that you had to warm up. It took you a little while to warm up to this movie, right?
The only thing about this movie that got me back in the day, and I think that this is pretty much going to be a make or break for anybody that watches this movie, is the duck voice. Like, I just couldn't get past how silly that I thought that was back in the day when we first watched it. And, going back and watching it now, it's really not in it that much. And when it is in it, like, it's very kind of like, very short. Like, you don't even notice it that much. I don't know if it adds anything to the film or takes anything away from the film now that I watch it again, but it definitely is unique. Like, I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean it's a little different. You got to think too. I mean, this was dubbed after the fact, so I wonder what they were doing when they were actually filming the movie. Like, did they have somebody in the background just speaking what was going on, or I don't know how that works.
I'm assuming they had to, like, but just that idea of, even when I didn't remember this either. I remember the scenes where like he's calling somebody and there's that voice, but I didn't remember that when he actually kills people, he's going like quack 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 quack. Like, which
Yeah, and then like it's not really a duck voice after that. It's like, oh, you thought you were being really nice there. Whack, 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 whack. When you were telling me that you wanted to show off your boobies and all that. Whack, whack, whack. That's kind of how
that's right. It looks to me like he was kind of ripping off Black Christmas, like the way that was done and everything, like especially with the voice, the actual voice that's in it, where the voice in Black Christmas is kind of similar to that, but then they just it's like, all right, here's what we'll do, we'll kind of rip that off, but then we'll add like a fucking duck quack into it, like a Donald Duck.
I'm with Matt though. He said that the voice is actually pretty disturbing, in his opinion. And I've always kind of thought that. I was like, God, that's kind of messed up. And wasn't there something about it was originally going to be like Donald Duck or something like that, but they couldn't do it.
They couldn't get the rights to it. Yeah. Yeah, and when you actually find out he's right, why that it is what it is, which that is uber fucking depressing, by the way. Like I really did not remember that part of the movie until I went back and rewatched it. But Jesus Christ, that adds a whole other layer of just. Anyway, we'll get to that because it really like takes it up a notch or down a notch depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah. So a couple other people have joined in here. We got X-Ray Punch, we got Phantasmat, Texas History Cancel. I don't know what the hell all that is. Niner 1965.
Breaker 19 for a radio check.
Kristen Clapper.
Does that take you back there?
That's right.
Breaker 19 for radio check, son.
It's hammerhead, buddy. You're going to stick it in your jaw. Right in your jaw.
Oh, shit.
Freddie Newsom. How you doing, Kristen Clapper? You probably won't be in here long. It's good to have you.
Kristen is part of the 0.5%.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So welcome, Kristen. I'm not sure if New York Ripper would be your type of movie. Could, possibly. Let's get in and see.
That's right. Let's get into New York Ripper. So, I want to give you some stats about this movie real quick before we talk about the plot. It was released on March 4th, 1982 in Italy. Country of origin is Italy, released by Fulvia Films. And a box office gross of 1.04 billion liras, which is the Italian equivalent of $1. Well, I don't know what that translates to at all, if that's good or bad. I think it's good. This movie also has Paolo Malco in it, who is the lead in House by the Cemetery as well. You might remember him as the doctor in House by the Cemetery. Not Dr. Freudstein, but the other doctor.
Well, he's a doctor in this one too, right? Or a professor or something like that.
Yeah, he's like a psychologist, I think. Psychiatrist, something like that in this. I can't remember his name in the movie, but yeah. So.
He was Dr. Paul Davis.
There you go.
Wasn't Paul Davis the guy that did that Beware the Moon documentary? Wasn't that his name?
Was that? You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about that guy.
Yeah, different Paul Davis.
Different Paul Davis, yeah. So the movie opens with one of the best openings that I can remember, and I remember this like explicitly from when we watched it. This is a great scene where there's a guy, like he's on, in New York, and they're on like the side of the bay there, and he's playing fetch with his dog, and he's throwing a stick. The dog's like going to get the stick, bringing it back, and then like goes into the bushes and brings back like a human hand. And that's how like the movie kicks off, which is a great opening scene, honestly, if you think about it. Kind of sets the tone for the rest of the movie.
Right.
And
the movie too, I got to say real quick here, visually and the cinematography almost immediately is freaking like breathtaking. So I don't know if this movie had like a larger budget than what his movies were before. But yeah, that's one thing I noticed, man. This movie looks great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that is either, but the remastering on the movie is outstanding too. Something about the way that it was shot, like some of Fulci's films, or maybe it's the way that Blue Underground kind of, remasters them, is just insanely good. So you kind of shift though from that scene to, they find the hand, and the police officers like start an investigation and all this stuff. And moving forward a little bit, like the next big scene to come out of it is another scene that I'll always remember for some reason. So the cops start an investigation, they're getting it rolling, and then there's another woman that's kind of just like riding a bicycle through the tunnels of New York City, and ends up, I can't remember why, that she ends up getting into this car, and she gets into a car, and like she's on the inside writing something
Like it's
on
I don't know what they call that when they haul like vehicles back and forth from like
a ferry.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like trying to get out. She's this creepy ass guy that's quacking at her or whatever. And yeah, I mean, the first of many very gratuitous like attack death sequences on women in
Yes.
particular.
Yeah, and this is just really like the precursor to how bad it gets. Like this one's not even really that bad as opposed to what you're going to see. This is the first like death that you see in the film. And it's basically just he comes upon this car and this woman and starts like doing his little quacky quack and is talking to her and all this stuff, and then she starts to get uncomfortable, and you start to see that something's going to happen, and then he just starts stabbing her and doing the thing where you stab somebody and kind of go upwards with it, like in different spots in her body too. And that's bad enough, but this one kind of is tame. This one kind of cuts away in different scenes. I mean, you see some of the ripping and the tearing, so to speak, but not like it's I don't know, more tastefully done than the rest of the film.
Yeah,
sure.
there's not a whole lot tasteful stuff in this movie, if
No,
we're being
there's
quite
not.
honest.
No.
This is probably the sleaziest Fulci movie that I've seen, at least. I don't know if, it's almost like it's almost like Danny Steinman like co-directed it or something with him.
From the beginning to the very end, there's something just so gritty about this movie. Like, we've seen a lot of grindhouse movies, but this has got to be up there in terms of movies that just have a feel to them that's just genuinely upsetting and kind of just like dirty. Everything about this movie like just oozes just like nastiness and just grime and grit. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but everything from where it's set to the characters to the death scenes, it's just sleazy, like every bit of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And there's lots of shots too of we were talking about before, New York City, 42nd Street around that time frame too, which it's completely changed. I don't know how long ago that they took all that stuff out, but like you have movie theaters, porn theaters, peep shows, sex shows, and stuff like that, all in that section of New York City. And it's a good time capsule for that time frame too. All those shots and stuff look great. But yeah, almost instantly, like there with this, I think it's a doctor's wife who is enjoying a sex show live, and that's when we get to
Yeah, God.
after the sex show. Yeah, the female in that one gets like insanely brutal death sequences there, and I love the way that was shot. In particular, like it was like first there was like some red lights, then it was like green lights, and I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, "Holy shit!" That's kind of the impression that Fulci films gave the initial. Yeah, for the first time you watch them, because at that point I'd never seen anything that fucking nuts.
Yeah, there's something about like his films where every one of them, and these two are no different, are kind of like it's excess. Like if it's violent, then it's taken to like the most hyper violent place that you can think of. And if it's sleazy, it's taken to the most like hyper sleazy. Like almost everybody in this fucking movie is naked. Like all the time. Like it's just constantly. Like I was trying to watch it in there in my room, like the kids going in and out. And normally Like they might, come in on like one scene that I would have to fast forward. And this, it was just like I just had to pause it. There ain't no scenes that are safe in this movie for these kids. Like one scene after another. Like, and it all takes place in either like strip clubs or sleazy like back alleys of places, or these fetish bars and things like that. Like every fucking scene is just somebody's either naked or getting explicitly fucking murdered. There's no,
Or just some bizarre, like, toe fucking and stuff like that, too. Like, where?
yeah.
How did they, like, I don't even know how that would come to be. Like, they would write that in the script, that scene in particular. That's one that I always remember from New York Ripper as well. And it's almost like Fulci that was kind of his fetish. Like, he was getting off on that because he'd have a real close-up shot of their faces and their mouths and their teeth and their tongue and everything. And it's like, fuck. I mean, I've watched some pretty hardcore stuff in my day, but that was like, I was like, it's just too much.
Well, I can't wait to get into the whole Giallo thing about this movie here in a minute, and also kind of what Fulci referenced and what he thought about Giallos, which is kind of fucking hilarious when you look at this movie too. But anyway, so the movie skips to a bunch of different places, but the basic plot line stays the same, which is there's a detective, an old kind of hardened, grizzled detective who's trying to find this killer. And there's a psychologist / psychiatrist, I don't know because they never really fully explain it, who does profiles of like serial killers, who's trying to help this detective find this killer. And all through the movie, there's these kind of little like subplots where, the two of them are discussing like a profile of who the killer might be and who they're not and things like that. And really, it's just an excuse to get some exposition in and then move to like one gory death scene after another gory death scene after another one. And that's the whole basis of this movie, really.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if this is, I know Fulci did The Psychic, right, which was more of a straightforward giallo. This is just like, it's almost like a hybrid of the movies he made in the early 80s, like the crazy gore movies, and then like a murder mystery.
Yes. Yeah. And there's a whole thing in this, I don't know if you remember this or not, but this kind of got lost on me, and I thought, this is a little unnecessary, like, especially considering what they do at the end of the movie, that there's a lot of, like, red herrings and, like, little plot devices that don't necessarily need to be in the movie. But do you remember the thing where, like, there's one point in the movie where they're trying to pin it on, like, a guy with 8 fingers or something like that, where he's missing 2 fingers from his right hand, and, like, that's supposed to be the thing you're supposed to be following is... You're supposed to be looking for somebody with 8 fingers, and that turns out to be just some...
Yeah, it seems like there were a couple people they were trying to make the red herring. He was one of them, and I always felt like they tried to make the doctor, the professor, one of them too, where he could be the killer as well. Because there's always a couple of people that's never around whenever something like this goes down, and he was one of them.
By the way, this has got to be one of the greatest jokes that any woman has ever contributed to this chat. So Kristen Clapper says, people complain about UPS ruining their boxes. Give me a break. We'll get into that. Yep. That's the first scene in this movie where when I was rewatching it, I was like, holy shit, like this guy, like none of this you wouldn't see this today. Like, I don't even care what kind of movie it was, you still wouldn't see it. Like if it was an independent film, like it would never, ever get played.
No, I mean, times have definitely changed. And that was kind of like his signature was the mutilation of the female genitalia. Like that was, and you almost get the fact that like, wasn't there the rumor that Fulci was like, he was just not, he didn't like women.
Well, that's kind of backed up in this movie and with the plot of this movie. We got a super chat here from old Dirk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dirk. Oh, you appreciate that, man. So that's backed up in this movie because Dardano Scischetti, which I always like to say that guy's name, who was the screenwriter and screenwrote like a ton of Fulci films, actually says that about this movie. Like when he's talking about it, he said, a lot of this was just Fulci coming up with ideas for how to like mutilate women, and he would say, that he was sadistic towards women. Like he had this mean streak in him and was constantly trying to come up with these new ways to torture these women, not only like on the screen, but there's also a lot of reports that he kind of tortures some of them like behind the scenes as well, and was kind of like a douchebag to a lot of like the female cast of these films. And that could go back to, if you wanted to psychoanalyze Fulci, and I don't think you probably should, but he was raised by a woman. I don't think that there was a father figure in his life, like in his upbringing or anything like that. I don't know if that has something to do with why he has like an unnatural hatred of women. I don't know like what his upbringing was like, to be honest. But there's a lot of people that knew him well that said that was like one of his hallmarks, was just being a really sadistic guy.
I think there was the only female that I've ever heard of that spoke highly of him was Catriona MacColl.
Yeah, they're few and far between for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they had some sort of special relationship going on there. But when we interviewed her, which you can check that interview out on DEADPIT on Patreon.com, it's up, baby. That was one thing that kind of surprised me, because at the time, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that every female that worked with Fulci had just a horrible experience. So I don't know if it's where she had a lot more like street cred as an actress or something like that. I don't really know. But she didn't have anything but great things to say, from what I can recall.
Yeah, and there's maybe one or two females that worked in his movies that I can actually point to where they said like all good things about him, and a shit ton of people that were like, God, he's a dickhead. So, so let's get to some of these comments real quick. So, X-Ray Punch wants you to do an impression of the Puerto Rican guy with the silver toes.
Ah, you like it. Tell me you love it. Come on, baby. Like that toe.
Bradley Taylor wants to know if there's an unrated cut for the New York Ripper. I think this is the unrated cut, isn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine that they didn't cut anything out of this.
Interesting side note about that, though, is that in the UK, I think you still can't get the unrated cut of this movie. And it was like banned since its existence, basically. And you can kind of see why. But as far as I know, like, this version is the unrated cut.
Oh, Lord, there's some craziness going on at Crack a Bottom.
God damn. Dogs and kids and everything running around.
There's a few movies, though, and this is definitely one of them, where every time I see it or even hear music from it, and I love the music on this, too, which I don't know if Fulci used this guy before or after, was Francesco Damazzi, who did a lot of spaghetti westerns, I think. I don't know how many horror movies he did, but I love the music in this. It's definitely different than the Frizzy stuff, Fabio Frizzi stuff. But, like, it just takes
It's still... I was noticing that, too, though. It's still great. Mm-hmm. Like, the score to this movie is amazing, yeah.
But it takes me back, there for only a day, to the classic Anchor Bay era, and watching these movies for the first time. And still have my Anchor Bay version of this as well. And I just remember, like, the shock initially when, the first time I've seen this shit.
Yeah, I'm still shocked by it. Like, every time I go back and watch this movie, which is like every 5 years, it seems like, or something like that. Like, I'm still amazed that it ever got made.
We got a celebrity in here, looks like.
Oh, God. Hold on. God damn, I can't imagine. Let's get to a couple of these.
Okay.
Old Curly Jaw says, The New York Ripper's hands down one of the greatest horror films I've seen besides X. About to go buy me a New York Ripper poster.
Well, thank you, Curly Jaws, for the super chat. New York Ripper poster. I don't know if I've ever seen one of those, Uncle Bill.
I don't have one of those either.
I'm about positive it didn't receive any sort of theatrical release here in the U.S.
We got John DeHart in here. So I'm doing the shimmy slide. Picture him's amazing.
He's a legend, Bulls. John DeHart.
UCTV says he heard that Harvey Weinstein was a huge fan of this movie. No doubt.
It was one of Harvey's favorites.
And Kristen says she read in an interview with his daughter in Fangoria years ago where she said he wasn't a misogynist. But who knows, since she was a kid and she was his kid.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she's not going to probably talk a bunch of shit about him, I would say. So, I mean, some kind of more scenes from the film, though. A lot of it takes place on what I would assume to be like 42nd Street, or at least a imitation of 42nd Street, where you've got all these fetish bars where back in the day, I don't know if people realize this, but back in the day in New York, people used to have live sex, like, in bars, and people would watch, pay to get in to watch. And there's some of that in this, and there was fetish bars where some of that, like, more kinky kind of stuff went on. So everything had a price, and everybody had to pay. And
there was tow bars.
There was tow bars, yeah.
Tell me you like it, the tow.
Yeah. There was one scene in particular, aside from that I've always remembered from this movie, and that is just, like, sincerely disturbing, where there's an older woman that goes into, and she's, like, watching some of these shows, and then she comes out, and he kind of sneaks up behind her and breaks, like, a bottle. And then, how do you say this in a PG-13 YouTube-ish kind of way? I'm not entirely sure how to say it. Let's just say that he stabs her in the nether regions. That's what I'm going to say.
And there's a lot of titty mutilation in this movie, too. We didn't talk about that.
An abnormal amount of areola destruction in this fucking movie.
Titty mutilation sounds like a metal band or something.
That would be an awesome metal band. Ladies and gentlemen, from Nebraska, it's titty mutilation.
Jamie Hart come in here just in time. We're talking about live sex in New York and titty mutilation. But it's in a movie.
They're on tour, yeah.
Yeah, we would never talk about that otherwise.
Oh my God. So anyway, film rolls along. There's just other people being murdered.
We ain't gonna be able to monetize this video.
How do you talk about this movie and monetize it? If you could tell me, I'd love to know. You tell me how to do it.
We've got to say proper words like vagina and areola.
To me, that makes it even worse.
It's like a medical video then or something like that.
Yeah. Like if I came on here, that would make this even creepier if I was like, there's a lot of vaginal destruction in this movie. Quite a bit of
titty mutilations, hit record, vaginal destruction.
That's right. Quite a bit of areola sadism in this. Like, what do you say?
The gentleman did take a straight razor right across her areola region.
And that's basically the coup de grace, so to speak. The one of the end death scenes where, so this killer is unknown to the police, and he's got the cops on the run, and very similar to like in some movie like Dirty Harry, which is the only similarity between Dirty Harry and this movie, is that the killer is calling him. The killer is calling him and kind of, tormenting them and telling them that all the stuff that he's going to do. And then he leads them to one spot, and so he can sneak in and, kill this other woman while they're not watching. And that scene is the scene where he takes a straight razor, and I'm not even going to attempt to say any of the shit that he does. But I remember the one scene with the titty mutilation. But I did not remember that he goes down her eyeball with it. And they show that shit.
And that's
like,
actually still looks pretty daggone good for something that's 40 years old. I couldn't believe that.
It's like starting at her forehead.
Yeah.
And like all the way like through the eyeball. And it shows like all of it.
Could it be one of those deals like they used like a real corpse? Because they did that in, they call her One Eye.
I mean, that it looked like it. It looked pretty convincing.
Pretty damn good for 1982.
Yeah. And so he's Suspirian. I gotta get some of his comments because these comments are like the greatest thing I've seen in a while. All right, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Let's just get completely demonetized now.
There's going to be some new shirts coming soon too, probably.
Yeah. So Matt says Matt, West Virginia, I guess, from WV, says it'd be a good Cannibal Corpse song. Jamie Hart, who's a female, keep that in mind, says she supports live sex in bars and titty mutilation in movies. Joe Bob says this proves cancel culture can't touch DEADPIT Radio. That's right.
Yeah.
J72 says Fulci monetized vaginal destruction. So that's good.
They made a career out of it.
Kristen says vaginal mutilation is an actual band. So,
oh god,
we're too late on that.
Well, it was, yeah. What was the destruction? Titty destruction, or was it titty mutilation and vaginal destruction?
Yeah,
because we got to make a shirt, like a death metal like logo shirt that says one of those on it.
Yeah, they're on tour with Silver Toes.
Opening up for Silver Toes.
Yeah.
Vaginal destruction.
So Suspiria Night says that we sound like horror physicians tonight. Yeah, I don't know how clinical we're getting with this stuff, but
with the vaginal destruction, with a straight razor.
Oh God. So okay, let's get serious. I don't know how much more serious we can get about this movie, but so going back to the actual plot, which at this point is basically just like a serial killer on the loose, and they're trying to catch him. So, and this is the part I didn't remember about this film. So if anybody hasn't seen this film, I'm not going to give away like any really, really like, you know, bad spoilers or anything, but just needless to say, there's a point at the end of this film where they introduce this idea that nobody has ever talked about whatsoever throughout the film, and it's completely unknown to the audience whatsoever, about one of the characters. And it is just like the film is going like 90 miles an hour, just crazy insanity, and then you get to this scene, and for me it just completely killed like all the momentum of the movie, because I'm like, Jesus Christ, that is a real fucking downer to just introduce that like right towards the end of the movie as being like, you know,
yeah,
a big plot point of the movie.
And I always thought too, I was like, that just come completely out of nowhere. They didn't really, I mean, it kind of explains why the killer is doing what he's doing, I guess. But other than that, it really didn't need to be there. I didn't think. It definitely, the movie was a real downer right at the end, like you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, not to give too much away, but I think if you're, you know, drinking a couple beers and having a good time with your buddies, watching like a slasher film, and then like Fulci's like, "You having a good time, motherfucker? Well, here's a fucking sick kid." Fucking shove that, you fucking pop and smoke.
Man, this kid's so fucking sick, she's got her arm cut off, and she's got a damn leg cut off, and she's dying, motherfucker. She's only got a couple of days left, and nobody visits her either. She's there all day and night, being sick as fuck.
Yeah, that's basically the end of the fucking movie. I'm just like, holy shit. Like, it got real really, really quickly. Oh my
God. And then, after her fucking dad's head gets fucking blown off, she's trying to call her dad so he can talk to her as a duck over the phone, but he's dead.
Yeah. Whew.
You know what's funny too is like when they did the deal where they shot his head off or whatever, the guy, which, if anybody's in here, you should expect to be spoiled. This is a fucking 40-year-old movie. The head, like sometimes, and this is the same way in The Beyond when he did the shot with the girl's head getting blown off,
Yeah.
I swear to God, it looked like, and both of them looked this way, it looked like a fucking, like pottery or something. It looked like a pot made out of somebody's head, and they just blew it up.
It did.
It looked really, really fake. That part.
This is the best thing ever. Kristen says, "Oh man, I hate it when my legs don't work and my dad's head gets blown off." I'm gonna die tonight doing this shit. Oh God, I'm going to hell. Oh,
What Garrett in here?
Listen, we did a crossover event. It's not really a crossover, I guess, since we're both on the same show. But
I'm a guest on this show.
We had to do it because we both are kind of a mark for these movies. Anyway, we've run off the more respectable people that were in the room now. So, what are your closing thoughts about the New York Ripper?
I think it's one of Fulci's. I would put it in his top 5 for sure. I think that I would say amongst hardcore Fulci fans, this one is kind of one of the more underrated ones. You don't hear too many people talk about it very much. Odd thing I wanted to mention to you too, and I thought this was, because I like this movie. You talked about it last week. We did that big 64 film tournament on S'mores Indoors page on Sunday. And the only Fulci movie he had on there was House by the Cemetery. Does that surprise you?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was like, I'm glad a Fulci movie is on the list, but that would not be my first choice.
No, I don't think that would be a lot of people's choice to be on a list of the, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to pick one Fulci movie, I don't know. I would have picked The Beyond or Zombie or really any, like City Living Dead, any of them. Yeah. But I don't know. To each his own. Like, I love House by the Cemetery, but I just you're right. It's not my top ones. I was really impressed by how good this movie is, though, in terms of like how good it is with the passing of time and how good the scenes, like the death scenes, still hold up, and the production still holds up. The quality of the movie still holds up. Like, it looks amazing on this particular version. I'm sure it looks amazing in 4K. And Blue Underground does an amazing job with all this stuff. So if you can get that, then definitely get.
Honestly, and I know there's a 4K version of this out as well, but man, this looked so freaking killer on the Blu-ray. It's possible it could look even better on 4K, but I don't think it's going to. It depends on whatever is the most affordable option, is what I would recommend. But Blue Underground does a killer job with these releases, for sure. And this is 3-disc, this one is. It includes the soundtrack, tons of special features, I think a DVD as well. And there's a booklet in here, too, that all about the making of the movie, and I think it's Fulci's daughter that wrote it, so good shit.
So I would say, like, if you were, to rank Fulci's movies, I would put this in the top 5 too. And I had a hard time with this one, like I said, for a long time, just because, like, the only reason just being the duck stuff. So I don't know, like, people are going to watch this, they're going to have a different opinion about that. And some people will love it and think it's like a unique part of the film, and some people will probably think it's retarded, but it is what it is.
Yeah, some of the cast in this, though, I wanted to mention real quick. Andrea Occhipinti was the guy that played Peter, who was ultimately the guy that gets his fucking head blown off.
Right.
So he was the lead in, I think, Lamberto Bava's best movie, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, what the fuck? and that's A Blade in the Dark, which is great giallo film, one that needs. Unfortunately, I think Full Moon owns it here in the U.S. I don't know how in the fuck it happened. But another one that I recognized, Cinzia De Ponte, who was the young lady that puked her guts up.
That's right.
The proper order in Gates of Hell, City of Living Dead.
So a couple of fun facts about the movie. Originally was supposed to be directed by Ruggiero Deodato, but was not for some reason that's unknown. It was given to Fulci, and in Deodato's version, I think the killer was supposed to have a form of like advanced, whatever that is called, where you age really, really quickly. And so like the whole plot of the movie was going to be that they couldn't identify the killer because he looked different like each time he killed somebody because he was aging so rapidly. That's a unique kind of idea, but it never happened. I want to read you some of the, to give you a better idea of how this movie was received when it came out. I want to read you some direct quotes from some reviews of the New York Ripper, and I think you'll get a better understanding of this movie if you've never seen it. So Carol Topolsky from the BBC writes, "Simply the most damaging film I've ever seen in my whole life." A relentless catalog of the anti-hero villain cutting women up. And that's
I don't know if it was ever done in the sleazier fashion as well.
I don't either.
Close-up shots. You got close-up shots of toes going near vaginal areas. You got close-ups of a guy's mouth when he says, "Oh, tell me you like it. You like that toe? I'm the silver toe devil."
Silver toe devil.
Yeah.
That could probably be a shirt. Okay, so a couple other quotes on here. These are all great, but I don't know where to begin. Eric Henderson says it's sour and pointless. And Robert Fershing says, pandering to the lowest common denominator as never before in his career. That's the kind of quotes I want on a movie. Yeah.
I mean, think of it too. This come out in 1982.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it even more insane. But, like, I think that at that time period, like, you could actually make a movie kind of like this. Like, I'm not sure if in any time period you could get away with making a movie like this where it didn't get butchered by the censors. But I think at least back then, like, it could get out and have, like, somewhat of a release. If you tried to put this movie out now, can you imagine what they would fucking do to the director and, like, everybody that starred in this movie?
Yeah. No, it would never be seen. It would never be out anywhere. It wouldn't be out in theaters, wouldn't be out on Blu-ray. You know, you get some of these feminist groups on something like this, they would eat it up.
So, all right, let's close with some more quotes. Yeah.
That would be on the cover if I had the
yeah. That's definitely true.
Right, his best vagina slasher, for sure.
Oh, man. Didn't they use the aging plot device for Deodato's movie with Michael York? Seems like they did use that. Like, it got recycled into another movie. I'm trying to remember, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I'm not a huge, like, Deodato guy that follows, like, a lot of his films, but it seems like I had read that actually may have gotten used in another one of his movies.
We're going to make
sure
Garrett watch Cannibal Holocaust again, though, do a watch-along with it. That's one of our next...
That's one of his favorites, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of our next shows coming up.
Silvertone Puerto Ricans.
Now look, we love Puerto Rican people. I'm a big fan of Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer Lopez. I didn't know this, but the 3-disc Blu-ray is out of print. Ooh. You can still get the 4K edition for $32 if you want. Buy it. Buy either one of them. It don't matter. Like, this movie it needs to be seen. It begs to be seen. There's millions of Fulci fans that can't be wrong.
Yeah, I would imagine like the video quality is not going to be a noticeable difference on that. I mean, I might be wrong because I mean this Blu-ray looked. I couldn't believe how great it looked.
No, it's insane for what it is. So the fact that the movie was made 40 years ago, and the fact that, I mean, I'm assuming it was pretty cheaply made. All of his films were pretty cheaply made. So
I guess the source material was in good shape. I mean, obviously it was shot on 35 millimeters, so.
So, I mean, does anybody have any other thoughts that they would like to make about Lucio Fulci's New York Ripper, which is classic, sleazy, Italian, giallo slash slasher slash slasher. That's an interesting way to put that.
Slash it, baby.
Slash it. $70 for the Blu-ray on eBay? Really?
Damn. You know what's bad is I just opened mine like 3 days ago. It was still sealed.
I'd say you could still get a ton of money out of it anyway.
Yeah. I would never sell it. I mean, there's a few movies, like, not to say like I'm really crazy perverted or anything. It's just like it's got sentimental value. This movie does for me.
Kristen, I would say, like, if you want to separate who you can get along with versus who you can't, then show that movie on a first date. It will separate the men from the boys.
I probably
pretty much immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even watch this movie with my wife. Or at least the worst parts of it, she didn't.
I can't imagine who you would watch this movie with, to be honest. Dark Hall says I can't stop talking about the New York Ripper.
It's a crazy fucking movie where I slash titties and mutilate vaginas.
Stupid cop, stupid cop. Quack, 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 quack. They actually say that in one scene in this movie. It's great. So yeah, I give it 7 quacks out of 10. Let's move on. I've got the DVD of A Cat in the Brain, but I watched it on Amazon Prime this time because all my DVDs are out in storage. Do you have the...
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I don't know if you even recall this. Do you remember the first time you even heard about Cat in the Brain?
Yes. I like explicitly remember the first time that I heard about it. It was over at your house, and you had one of those sales sheets that they used to have, which had a bunch of Fulci shit on it and things like that. And somehow or another, like one of those, or like a magazine that you had or something like that, it had Cat in the Brain in it. And I can remember like that was the first time that I ever saw anything about it.
I don't know if you saw this, but the first time that I ever recall seeing it, and they used to do this in DVDs, because that was back when people were fucking creative, right? They don't do anything like this now. They would have what was called an Easter egg on some of those Anchor Bay DVDs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think it was Gates of Hell, the Gates of Hell DVD, or City of Living Dead, the Anchor Bay one. Or it may have been the Beyond. It was one of those where you could move the arrows over and it would highlight something like, I think it was the E-Bond sign. It must have been the Beyond DVD. And hidden right there was the trailer for Cat in the Brain. And I remember, I don't know if you were there, but my mom and dad, like, they had just come home from church or something like that. And we put I turned that trailer on there. That trailer's got, like, all the craziest shit in the movie in it. Like,
That had to be amazing.
Like, brains everywhere and cats eating the brains and,
That's the opening scene of the movie, yeah.
Yeah. Cutting the heads off and all that. And that's when I first heard about it.
I bet Mike was like, God damn it, it's fucking trash. Turn this shit off.
Pretty much, yeah. He was like, yeah, get that trash out of my house.
Turn that shit on.
But it was not on DVD. For many years, I don't know when the DVD came out. 2008 is when the DVD came out. So, DVD, this was probably 2000 or 2001. And the only way we could get this, Uncle Bill, And check this shit out. I still have it. I would never get rid of it. The old school Cat in the Brain Laserdisc from Box Office Spectaculars. Right?
That is just amazing.
And usually this thing is hanging up back there, but I took it down so I could show people. Yeah, I mean, that was how we watched the movie for the first time for years and years and years. So, yeah, a lot of history with Cat in the Brain as well.
And I think Cat in the Brain is one of those movies where the hype leading up to it and like what you were going to see may have been better than the actual movie. Like all the shit, like, you know, all the good parts of this movie can be like condensed down into a trailer for sure. Like it's kind of spotty at best, but I do think it represents a pretty good overall kind of capsule of Fulci's work doing like slasher-esque kind of films. Because if you think about, he really didn't do many slashers, just straight out fucking like what you would call like slasher films.
No, his gimmick was more like the zombie undead type shit.
Yeah, this is the closest one, you know. Oh, that reminds me too. Before we go on to this one, I'd forgotten too about like what he thought about giallos. Fulci actually has been on like quote to say that he wasn't a fan of giallo movies. Like he thought they were a bit like pretentious and kind of, you know, overblown, kind of overhyped as well. I think he liked Argento, and I know Argento liked him because there was something that I read where Argento actually helped pay for his funeral when he passed away. So I mean, there must have been some sort of.
That's so crazy too. Which we'll talk about that as well, because one of the extras on this was the last public appearance of Fulci in New York City in 1996, right shortly before he passed away. And they've got that on here too, and that's really interesting. It's like an interview in Italian that they have subtitled out, and Fulci died pretty much penniless from what I've heard.
Yeah, that was kind of at the end of the last meaning the first Tuesdays with Fulci. That was kind of like the way that I ended it, and somebody was like, "That's kind of the perfect way to end." You know, talk about Lucio Fulci's career was that he died basically despondent from anybody, penniless and alone, and there's some thought that he probably killed himself by not taking his medication and just kind of.
Yeah, he had. This movie here, Cat in the Brain, was 1990. So if you see him in that video, which it's probably on YouTube if you want to search for it, he had deteriorated in 6 years. Unbelievable amount. Like, looked like he'd aged probably 20 years in those 6 years.
And that time period, I think, is when he was the sickest too. Like we're from 90 on to when he passed away, because like I mean the diabetes, he had a lot of liver problems, he had cirrhosis. It just kind of went really steadily downhill for a while there. And he never told anybody he was sick because he wanted to keep working. He didn't want people to think that he couldn't work. So there was probably a long period of time he was actually sick that people didn't even know anything about it.
I think he was working on a movie, Black Mask or something like that, when he passed away, or it was in pre-production or something. He was the original director for that one.
Yeah. So, okay, Cat in the Brain. So, let's start with the specs before we get into the plot. So, Cat in the Brain was released on August 8th, 1990. It was released in Italy. It had a budget of $100,000 US. Released by it says it was distributed by Lucasfilm. I somehow don't think that part's true though.
Probably.
Yeah, so A Cat in the Brain is kind of ahead of its time if you think about it. Like, I hate to give this movie too much credit, but like, how many movies can you think of that were made around like the early 90s where they're actually, it's a fictionalized version of the director who's playing himself in the movie. Like, he is playing a horror film director with the name Lucio Fulci in the movie that is, you know, creating all these scenes, all these horrible, like, graphic, like, death scenes for this movie. And he starts to have like hallucinations that when he's just walking around in everyday life, that from a lot of his scenes in his movies are kind of being projected.
When he's filming a movie while this is going on too, right?
Right. Yeah.
And for some reason, he's dressed like Elmer Fudd.
He's dressed in like the red and black plaid and the hat, the red and black plaid hat. Yeah. I have no idea why either. You're right.
Either.
But one of those companies made like a bobblehead of that, which I need to see if that's still available with him.
I actually had that. I did have that at one time and ended up selling it because I think it skyrocketed in value.
Yeah, Jay actually says Fulci beat Craven to being meta. That's true in like some ways. Like it's weird because he was commenting on like horror films in general and what they can do to your psyche and things like that and yada yada yada. And being like meta way before that became like a trend in the mid to late 90s. But anyway, so he sees a psychiatrist who's played by, I cannot remember that guy's name, but he's one of the creepiest sons of bitches of all time.
Let's just say Chef Boyardee played him.
That's right. Let's say Sergio Stilvano, because there's always somebody named something like that in these movies. And the psychiatrist is kind of doing the psychoanalysis on him and trying to explain, and you kind of come to find out like later on in the movie that he has like a bigger part to play in all this. But really, this movie is just an excuse for Fulci to create all these death set pieces as like he goes through, you know, his reality's kind of slowly crumbling away and his movie scenes are taking over his real life. So that's kind of the plot of the movie. First of all, first things first, what did you think about Fulci's acting?
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like I thought so the first time I watched it, and I only rewatched clips of this because I just didn't have time to watch the whole movie again. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I mean, for what it was, it's obviously like an extremely, extremely low budget movie. That's the first thing that I noticed when I was looking at it again. It's almost filmed like, do you remember the old Mr. Bean episodes?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got that same look to it. It looks the same. It's
got that generic kind of, Canada generic look from the early 90s. Somehow,
yeah, or European look or whatever it was. Which I love Mr. Bean, by the way. I don't want to diss him at all because he's the man. But yeah, it just has that look to it. It does not look like the classic Fulci, 35mm movies. I'm not sure what they used. I mean, this is out on Blu-ray, so it may have been shot in like, I don't know, 16mm, 35mm or what, but it just does not, I don't know, it didn't look like, some of the earlier films that he did.
It really doesn't help in this movie either that like, and I know a lot of Italian directors have done this kind of thing before where Fulci kind of recycles scenes from his other movies and puts them in this movie. And that just really cheapens a film to me because you can totally notice a lot of the stuff where that comes in,
It's very Bruno Mattei-esque.
Yeah, it's a little too Mattei-esque. That's a good word.
But the idea behind the movie is actually great. I mean, it's an excellent concept for a film. I think that this is one of those movies that, in a certain aspect, could be remade. If you could get, I don't know who would, be a classic film director that would want to do something like that now. But just the breaking of the fourth wall, Uncle Bill, in 1990. Yes. I'm guessing they filmed this in 89, early 90. That's crazy. It's just way, way ahead of its time, that concept was.
Well, that's one of the things you got to say about Fulci. Like, you can say whatever you want to about the actual quality of his films, but that guy was not afraid to, like, try different things and kind of, he was fearless in some of the shit that he put on the screen. Like, some of that stuff, like, we were talking about, you would never, ever in a million years see anybody else do. And he just kind of put it up there. So, in that way, like, he was kind of creative despite the production value of a lot of his movies. Like, he was really kind of breaking down a lot of film cliches back then.
There were aspects of his films, too, where I mean, the material that's in the movies is one thing, but his visuals and some of the nightmarish shit that he brought to life on film, there's not many people that can do that that I
No.
know of. In particular, The Beyond and Gates of Hell, just a nightmare come to life, man. And that early stuff for sure. And I don't know if, I mean, he is like the master of that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I really don't know how to classify A Cat in the Brain along with all these other films. I mean, we went through all of the quadrilogy of death, so to speak, and like those movies don't really fit with a movie like Cat in the Brain. And I guess really New York Reaper doesn't really. I don't know what the fuck fits with A Cat in the Brain, to be honest. Like that movie is kind of singular. Like there's nothing else really like that, is there?
Cat in the Brain was, when you go in the video store back in the day, and I know some people probably don't know this, but Cat in the Brain was like the porn section. Like you're not supposed to go. Don't go in there. That's, you're not allowed, right? That's kind of the impression that movie had, because Anchor Bay was coming out with all of those classic Fulci movies, and everybody got so excited there. And it was years and years and years before Cat in the Brain got a DVD release. That was one that Anchor Bay never did do. So it was kind of like put up on a pedestal just for some of the sick stuff that was in it, the visuals, which at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff did not look very good at all. In there a scene when, and I don't remember seeing this in any of the clips I watched, but where they like chainsaw a kid's head off or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
it
it.
looks like terrible. It does not.
It does.
Look
It looks
good at
like
all. Yeah.
looks like a paper mache head or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with this movie to me is pretty simple though, because like Fulci, all of his movies relied on atmosphere and kind of like the visual, not the storyline as much. And with Cat in the Brain, I don't think it has a very good atmosphere. Like with New York Reaper, you felt like just like you need to take a shower, like just sleazy. Just that movie was just pure sleaze. And with all of the dead films, like you felt like there's just a weird tension and atmosphere. With this movie, I just look at it and I don't feel like any real emotion behind it. I just feel like it's kind of cheaply made, and it's just a collection of death scenes. But it's got a great underlying kind of plot, but it has no heart to it. It doesn't seem like.
Well, the original name for this was Nightmare Concert, which I think almost fits the movie better because it's just scene after scene, almost like song after song in a concert. There's nothing that really, I mean, you've got a general story where Fulci thinks he's killing all these people and he's going crazy, and everything that he sees, he's thinking of horror and terror and all that shit. But other than that, there's not I don't remember a plot to this. I mean, there's some creepy stuff in it. The gore in it is crazy cheap and shitty looking overall. I mean, it's funny. It's fun and, a good time. But yeah, this does not go with, some of his earlier stuff that we really love quite a bit. House by the Cemetery, the Zombie, City of Living Dead, stuff like that.
No, it doesn't fit in those categories at all, I don't think. We got a super chat from Dirk. It says, Fulci always has that slow, no way out threat that'll keep you anxious and then a swift, mean kill. I think that's pretty accurate interpretation of that, too.
Yeah.
Colt Gay says, Fulci is way overrated. I only like Zombie and Gates of Hell. I don't like The Beyond, and I don't get the hype. I guess I could see that. See, I kind of used to think along those same lines, but like, I used to really think that Argento was kind of better than Fulci and was the more kind of, I don't know, like the more, kind of filmmaker. But nowadays, like if you watch both of them, like they're just completely different. I mean, they're great, but they're just complete opposites. It's that somehow or another are still
Well,
like,
yeah, and people, Italian horror, oddly enough, like you can never predict who's going to like it and who's not.
right.
So it's an acquired taste for sure. I mean, some people like, oddly enough, most of the films that I've shown Sarah, she has kind of gotten some kind of enjoyment out of it. I mean, she's not a horror fan at all, but there was a couple of those movies that she was like, "Oh, those are pretty good," So it's just weird. I mean, not everybody's going to like the Euro horror stuff. You can't ever predict who will, who won't.
I think that movies like this, like Cat in the Brain, and a lot of the later movies that Fulci did, I think that's where a lot of people kind of check out. Of like, if you're just like a casual, if you're a casual fan of horror, like you just when you get to those movies,
Wasn't
like
there one late, like one of his last movies, like Door into Silence or something like that?
I remember that title. Yeah,
it was just this guy driving around like the whole time, and it's fucking awful. We reviewed it. I think it was Doorway into Silence or Darkness or something like that.
There's a movie called Door into Darkness, and there's a movie called Door into Silence. I don't know, like it could be either one of them.
Both Fulci films.
They probably are. Yeah. Okay, a couple of comments here, real quick. God, there's a lot of comments I'm trying to get to.
You want me to help you out? I can scroll up and go through some too.
Yeah, go through some of them.
Let's see here. Oh, Curly Jaws seemed to like the cats chowing down on brains at the beginning of the movie. That's different. I mean, I don't know. I would love to know what those brains were actually made of, because cats are picky motherfuckers when it comes to eating.
I don't think it was a real cat. It just looked like a fucking
like a puppet. Yeah.
It was a puppet, I'm pretty sure. In a bunch of the scenes.
And I know that he had asked me something about, because old Curly is collecting like a lot of dead formats.
Yeah.
Laser discs and HD DVDs. Unfortunately, I'm not selling this lovely Cat in the Brain banned in England laser disc. But I did want to also show, and I was looking at it today, and I was like, holy shit, I forgot about that. So some of the cool stuff that would be included in Laserdisc from time to time was posters.
Oh, hell, yeah.
And this is like almost like a daybill size of Cat in the Brain.
Un gatto nel cervello. Buglebo.
So I mean, as far as, I don't know if this is worth big money, but I would imagine it is. Somebody can go and look it up. I'm not really sure. I remember for years and years and years, even before the DVD came out, it was worth big money. But I would not sell it for any price.
You ever notice how you have to do that to your face before you speak Italian? You got to go like,
I want a meatball, some fettuccine.
The cat in the cranium, yes. Shit, what's some more stuff about this movie? There's quite a bit. There's a lot of mutilation scenes, some with a chainsaw, some with an axe, some with a bunch of other garden implements. I think that really this movie was just an excuse for him to throw all this shit on the wall and call it a movie and get people like us to buy it. So that's just my opinion.
Kristen had another one here. I still prefer Bava, but Fulci trumps Argento as far as I'm concerned.
I don't, but see, that's like apples and oranges. I don't think you can compare those two. I mean, you can, I suppose, but they're just, to me, they're totally different. In every way of everything they do and their motivation for what they do.
Yeah, but they were around the same time, so they're always going to be compared, and they're the two most well known. Now the difference is, and we'll touch on this a little bit more too, Argento has always kind of been well known. Fulci, I think he's more famous now than when he was alive, especially in the United States.
Definitely. The whole Fulci Lives campaign that got started. I'm not sure if Fangoria started that or who started that, but that definitely made him 1,000 times more popular than he ever was. what comments have we got on there? Dickie Bird Thompson.
J 1972, no Sergio Salvetti cinematography for Mood. Well, Sergio is a master of the cinematography, there ain't no doubt. Colt Gay, he says that he loves Argento way better. Argento has probably a larger collection of films that are good, for sure. I would say that. Fulci's, I don't know though, man. I mean, as far as visually and all that, if you're just looking at the cinematography, which is what a lot of those films are about, you know, Argento and Fulci, I think Fulci cinematography may have it.
I mean, I don't even want to compare them, man. It's just too difficult for me. I know Colt Gay over here is saying that he's kind of got a point, though. Suspiria is a masterpiece, and Fulci never made a film near that. I kind of agree with that. Like, even his best films, I don't think came to the level of Suspiria.
I did want to mention this, too. Colt Gay, appreciate all the anecdotes. I was like, how fucking old was that guy when I first saw that? Because Jack Headley, who played the lieutenant in New York Ripper, he was like old then. He looked like he was probably in his mid-50s. He just passed away last December.
He would have been, is the weird part. That movie was made 40 years ago. He'd have been 52 when that movie came out.
So, yeah, he's 92 years old, passed away 4 months ago. 3 months ago.
Yeah. Jay says Chaz Bolin at Deep Red Magazine started Fulci Lives. That makes sense. I forgot about that guy.
Oh, yeah, he was his art was freaking killer, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Cat in the Brain, it's definitely not a good movie, I wouldn't say. But it's one that if you're a Fulci fan, you have to...
You have to see it.
Have to see it / own it.
Let me give you a couple other little side notes here. The film was composed almost entirely in post-production, assembled from clips of two of Lucio Fulci's past films, Sodoma's Ghost and Touch of Death, as well as a few horror films made by other directors, which were supervised by Fulci. So, yeah.
You do that.
Yeah, motherfucker, no.
That's not right, though.
Yeah. You're not to put the camera in the right direction.
I want to cut her twat.
You breaking the bottle, then you sticking the bottle in the twat. You done the sticking the bottle and then break it.
Twist it.
You twist. Son of a bitch, twist that way.
And then we see the blood.
You twist.
Twist in the pussy.
Oh God.
And then you take this right here and you slice up the teeth.
Oh fuck. Oh.
Don't you say that's how you do it?
You gotta get in there and you twist it, son of a bitch. Twist.
Come close. Slice the teeth.
You fucking with me, I'm fucking with you. Oh God. Oh, holy shit, that's amazing. So, I'm assuming that's kind of how it went down.
Fulci's favorite game.
Here it comes. You ready for it? Go ahead.
Pull it. Twist it. Bop it. Smash it. And then slice up the teeth.
I'm gonna pass out. Jesus. Okay, so I'd say right about now, Garrett's probably blocked us from all forms of social media.
Garrett's just—he's happy that he's not on this show.
He's like, I don't want nothing to do with these guys no more. It's sick. God. Oh my God.
So,
Let's talk about the media for this real quick.
yeah.
It was released in the U.S. and Japan on Laserdisc in the late 1990s, which is, I'm assuming, what you've got.
Let me see if this has got a date on it. 1998, Uncle Bill.
Yep. The uncut, uncensored director's cut of the film was released in North America for the first time on VHS and DVD by Image Entertainment in 2001. I'm betting Don May probably had something to do with that. As part of the Euroshock collection, then reissued on March 31st by Grindhouse in 2009.
They've got like special features on Laserdiscs too. We didn't mention that. One of them is, and this is funny, I'll have to look this up. There was an original novel for Cat in the Brain. It says there's a novel artwork that's included as a
That has to be great.
But yeah, they've got the appearance at Fangoria's Weekend of Horrors in January of '96. Promo materials, still galleries. They've got collections of videos and CDs and stuff that was released on it. So for 1998, it's pretty in depth. And David J. Schall has like a whole big short story piece on the back of it talking about the movie. So
I'm curious.
A hell of a release.
Is the Cat in the Brain Blu-ray still in print? Probably not, because I'm wanting to get it, so it probably won't be.
I think it is. I think Grindhouse has it, but I'm not 100% on that. Somebody can go look it up. But this is the DVD, which, like I said, 2008 is when the DVD came out.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, when that came out, like, we absolutely had to have that, too.
Yeah,
But
and actually the Box Office Spectaculars is on the DVD as well. So I don't know if that's just who outright owns Cat in the Brain or what the deal is.
so that is Cat in the Brain. That is the New York Ripper. We'll get some, like, comments. There's a ton of shit here that people have put. Mostly it's really bad Italian impressions.
Slice it, bump it, twist it.
Hey, listen, you got the bottle to break in the pussy. Come on. We got to tight
and twist it.
We got to tight the schedule. You got the bottle for the pussy. Come on, son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
You got some shit to do.
You want to go through the comments?
Yeah, let's go ahead and see what we got here. Old Curly Jaw says both films are 10 out of 10. Yeah. I mean, Curly Jaws, I feel like this is right up your alley.
Yeah, we'll go up back to Colt Gay. Says, I have the Grindhouse DVD of Cat in the Brain and still have never watched it.
I don't know. It has a certain appeal to it because, number one, Fulci's in it, like, through the entire thing. So that's kind of cool to see him, like, you know, around that era and acting, which he's not a great actor by any stretch in this movie, but I mean, there's just something unique about that because you don't get to see that often with a lot of these directors. And it's got an okay vibe to it. It's just kind of seems kind of rushed, and I don't know.
The Cat in the Brain or Blu-ray is available on Amazon. Grindhouse still has it out. Looks like the mayor bought it recently, and Bradley says it's still on there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Manic Exorcism. Back in the day, I read that Fulci was the godfather of gore. After seeing how many of his movies were banned across the world, I knew that I had to start checking his stuff out. Well, I mean, we can get into that. I don't know if you talked about that last week, like our introductions to Fulci, which to memory, I think they're a little bit different for both of us.
Yeah, I talked about my kind of introduction to Fulci, but I don't think that it's in any way like the same. Because I really like it. Really like is a 2-part thing with me that I talked about on the last edition of Tuesdays with Fulci, which you can go ahead and go back and check out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, just go through real quick. I believe that you had like a VHS copy of Zombie, right? That you knew about. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I'd heard you talk about it beforehand, but I'd never seen it. And it just so happened that the day that I got my first DVD player, it was in August of like 1999, may have been 2000. Suncoast Video, I went in there to get 2 DVDs. And one of those DVDs was Anchor Bay's City of the Living Dead. I just thought the cover was killer. It sounded like it was really cool zombie flick. And oddly enough, it was directed by the same guy that did Zombie, that we didn't find out until later. And I think I'd watched it first and I watched it again with you because I was just in such awe over some of the shit that was in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my introduction.
These are kind of the ones where you watch them and they do actually live up to the hype. If you're into gore anyway, like if you're into just kind of like random violence and gore and things like that from that time period, all of Fulci's films deliver, I think, like to some degree or another. Especially the New York Ripper. Like that movie is just insanely violent still to this day.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
Colt.
He's got a good one here. My local video store in the 80s had a ton of Fulci rented Zombie from Wizard Video, Gates of Hell Paragon, and House by the Cemetery in Vestron release. So oddly enough, like maybe I overlooked them. I don't think so. I don't remember seeing the Fulci movies in the video store here.
I don't either, except for Zombie. I remember seeing that one, but I don't remember any of the others.
Yeah, I actually don't even remember seeing Zombie, but
well, this is what I was talking about. Like one of the things I was talking about last week is my first kind of experience with Fulci was my dad showing me Zombie. Probably when I was anywhere between 8 to, let's say, 11. Like somewhere in that time frame. Because, like, around that same time frame, he was showing me Dawn of the Dead. And I can't remember if he had them together on a tape or something. There's somebody, or if he just, like, showed them to me at the same time. I don't know what it was. But, like, those two, I vividly remember Dawn of the Dead and, like, Zombie were kind of interchangeable. Like, I saw them both around the same time. So I mean, that's bizarre to me to think back now that I was that age and watching that shit, but it definitely happened. And then, I don't know, like, I've told you this story a billion times, but it's true. It still fascinates me that old Boogie used to have the, and I think that's where I got that VHS tape. Mm-hmm. I remember him having that VHS tape in that lot, for sure.
A lot of the big box stuff, though, that's what the Wizard Video stuff was, and a lot of that stuff I remember. So I don't know if the video stores didn't have that I was going to, or what the deal was, but I'm positive that I would remember the Zombie cover as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we used to go over to the single wide trailer that was, I think it was New World Video or something in Martin. Like they had and that was just a bizarre place.
What do you think about Burial Ground, Night of Terror? Colt says it's one of his favorite zombie movies from Italy.
I mean, you know how I feel about Burial Ground. That's one of the most batshit insane movies ever made. Yeah. And still, to this day, it's got some of the craziest, most surreal scenes in it.
Isn't it funny that that's got like a special edition remastered Blu-ray?
It is, yeah.
It's just so wild. Suncoast was a killer store, too. We need to put that over. Stuntman Mark. I remember Suncoast loved that store, the good old days of physical media stores.
Yeah, I do miss that as well.
I think there are some Suncoasts left in the Northeast, but very few. They used to be in like every mall back 15, 20 years ago.
There's still a lot of FYEs for some reason, but that's about it.
That's the closest thing to a Suncoast, yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan Adkins, Zombie was my first introduction to Fulci. I've been a fan of his stuff since, and Zombie is still my favorite film. New York Ripper was the second film of his that I saw, and it holds up. It does hold up very well to this day. I will say that. And I know we've talked about it to death. The Blue Underground release of that is astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, any of their stuff is that I've seen with any of the Fulci stuff, especially the Zombie 4K, is fucking crazy.
And we have talked quite a bit about the razor blade in a woman's breasts. That's probably the proper way to say what we were wanting to say earlier.
A lot of areola destruction. Yeah.
You see any on there you want to take? Go ahead, boss.
Let's see. Ruben says, what I enjoy most is the simple fact that these classic horror films don't have copious amounts of cartoonish CGI, being that computer technology was so limited and expensive at the time. I actually appreciate that about these movies too. Yeah, everything is practical, and even if it looks bad, it somehow still looks more realistic than the shit that they do nowadays with a lot of these movies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there may have been one or two things in New York Ripper that kind of didn't look that great, but overall, for a movie that's 40 years old, it held up pretty good.
Here we go. Jamie says, my high school boyfriend's parents owned a small video store. They had a few Fulcis, and he and I picked them up to watch them, but we never ended up seeing the whole thing, Yeah. Oh.
Jamie,
God.
I am thinking Jamie's in West Virginia, so she's nearby. Small town video stores. Everybody is championing these Blockbuster, the last Blockbuster store that's in Iowa or whatever. Fuck Blockbuster. I'll still say it to this day. Don't give a fuck. I miss the small town mom and pop stores like New World Video, Jenny Wiley Video, Superstar Video.
Oh my God. Yeah, Superstar was the bomb. Superstar was like the high rent. New World was like shit like on the side of the road somewhere that you went to.
I forgot to tell you too. Shit. You remember Primetime
Superstar's coming back?
Do you remember Primetime Video?
Yes.
So that was the one that was in Foodland parking lot.
Yes.
Do you remember the woman that run that store? She was kind of an older lady. She was always the one that was in there. I saw her in Goodwill probably 2 months ago, and I was getting ready to actually go up to her, but I didn't. I was seriously wondering where all that shit went. They had...
Yeah.
I was like, you don't happen to have this in a storage building somewhere? I'll throw down some money.
Dude, you should have asked her. Because it's untailing what they did with that shit.
Well, they sold it. They either sold it or kept it. Which they probably sold it, but...
Oh, my God. Alright, so Kristen says, practical forever, CGI blood is an insult. It's definitely true. I fucking hate it.
I don't know how I thought... Jamie lives in New York? Is that Western New York?
I guess that's Western New York, yeah, amongst the Amish.
I got that totally wrong. I thought she said West Virginia.
West Virginia. It's like, oh, fuck. That's completely different, yeah.
Yeah, that's... My memory
I don't know if this is true, but they have a comic series called Maniac versus New York Ripper. It's the other way around. I don't remember. I pray that that's actually true. Yeah, so Dirk asked an interesting question here, too. We had a video time. They had a naughty room in the back. So, in New World in Martin, back in the day, which is where we went to rent the majority of the videos that we went, you walked in to a single wide trailer, up a little flight of steps, and you turned to the left, and on the far left wall, there was the horror titles. But to the right of that, they had those old, remember those old hippie beads that hung down?
It's the beaded curtain.
The beaded curtain, yeah. And then through that beaded curtain, which you could see through, by the way, was like the porn. And I always remember as a kid just getting over there and just being like, kind of, oh, just make sure nobody's looking. Just, oh, look at it, look at it. And then turn back over to the horror section.
Do you remember, this was in like, over there by the hospital, Showtime Video. Do you remember them? That was a little ways away from Prestonsburg.
Yeah, I remember Showtime. I've been there. Went there a couple times.
They had a killer wrestling section. Like I rated their wrestling section and copied all kinds of shit back in the day. But they had it was a big like binder book that had the pictures of the covers and who all was in it and everything like that. And they would, I'm talking when 15, 16 years old. You remember when we were rolling with Jeremy Mitchell and his neighbor and all them, you know?
Oh, yeah.
They would rent those porns to anybody. They did not give a shit.
They're very forward thinking up there.
A lot of it was like crazy old shit, though, like from 1970s, early 80s.
Look here, Ron Jones and all these. Kill.
There's green carpet.
So people are going nuts about this, though, talking about like the fucking the video store stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Kristen said she never had one, never had like an adult section. That's weird. I thought all video stores had an adult section at one time. Dirk says the beaded curtain was hippie. He had the beads in the car. Jack Frost had those beads in the car seat in 1985. Several old video stores had naughty sections behind the curtains. Jay says he actually got to restock the adult section. So that's nice.
A saloon style door.
There you go. Jamie confirms the ex-boyfriend's parents' place had a beaded curtain section full of naughty movies. So there we have it.
Yeah, you didn't have a X-rated section in Blockbuster.
No, that's right. They didn't, did they? See, Blockbuster's just shitty. But anyway, New York Ripper and Cat in the Brain, those were the two for tonight. That represents the slasher era. I don't know what to do next. I've got several different options. Maybe some people can give me like an idea of what they think would be like the better of the options. We can go with we could call like the more unknown Fulci stuff. I mean, we could go like Manhattan Baby. We can go with the early stuff, like Lizard in the Woman's Skin.
I thought of one that you need to do. Because this is a batshit fucking crazy ass movie and it's totally out of left field for Fulci. Conquest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm going to do that one. Definitely. I've got that on DVD still. I don't think I have it on Blu-ray. But that one, I remember watching that and I was like, holy shit, that movie is great, but also crazy. I can't wait to get it. I don't know where that fits, though. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
if you're doing a theme,
he doesn't have another movie like that, I don't think.
No. I think that just has to be like a random, I would do Fulci show.
Like, he has a couple of westerns. One of them is really freaking good. I think I have it over there. It's called For of the Apocalypse. It's one of his better actual movies that, it doesn't have any really crazy shit in it. So, I mean, you could maybe do something like just a couple of oddball movies like Fulci, you wouldn't think Fulci would make.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point here in the very near future, I'm going to run out of themes because his career after all the zombie films and it becomes very kind of varied in what he did too. The Psychic's a good one, somebody mentioned that. And when I do that one, you'll be on that one too, because you wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely want
rewatch the Psychic.
Want to rewatch the Psychic because the theme song "7 Notes in Black" to the Psychic is probably one of the best pieces of music that's ever been in an Italian horror movie. Anybody can look that up. I mean, that's just some amazing shit.
So some people have suggested Manhattan Baby, the Psychic. Conquest. A couple people said Conquest. A couple people said the Psychic. So, I mean, there's so many left.
A lot of stuff. Lizard in a Woman's Skin is another one.
Yeah.
I think Lizard in a Woman's Skin and Don't Torture a Duckling would be two good ones to go.
I was getting ready to say, like, I think that's what we should do. Because those are like the earlier Fulci films. And we haven't really done that as much. So, yeah, the next show, we'll cover those two then. Lizard in a Woman's Skin, Don't Torture a Duckling. And then at some point, we'll get to like the 50 other. Well, what the fuck, man? Crater's in here. Buddy.
I think it'd be cool to maybe get like a different person on here with you to talk Fulci. I don't know how many people are actually, that astute in Fulci films.
There seems to be quite a few people that are very like Fulci oriented here. So I'll tell you what, like message us on like the Instagram page or the Facebook page if you're interested in doing like a co-host thing with the next one, which will be, like I said, Lizard in a Woman's Skin, Don't Torture a Duckling. If you know those films, if you like those films, that's going to be a pretty tough. First of all, you have to find somebody that's willing to get on camera. And secondly, you got to find somebody that knows those two movies. So
I'd be really good if we could get a girl. Not pointing any fingers or anything, but we need to
yeah.
We need to up our zero. We need to get 0.5% to at least 10%.
0.7. Yeah. So we're taking
no pressure,
applications.
DEADPIT@gmail.com. Steve doesn't stay up this late, so he's not doing it.
That's right. Steve, yeah, somebody actually said Steve. Yeah, Steve never going to do that if he has to stay up past like 10. Okay, so there's a ton of requests on here, like Demonia, Black Cat, Devil's Honey.
Hey, now.
It is, man.
It is
5 minutes past bedtime.
Okay, honey. I'll be in there in a second. Tuck you in. Why?
Because I'll be asleep before you get up
Well.
there.
Yeah, buddy, fuck you. Bedtime, bitch.
What do you think about, get Sarah's opinion on Lucio Fulci films?
I don't even know what the hell that is. That's my opinion right there.
Well, you watched some of this, New York Reaper.
Well, when?
Earlier tonight, that was the movie I was watching. It was New York Reaper.
I wasn't paying no attention to that.
Well, hell.
All I saw was looked like a razor blade or something other, cutting down a naked girl.
That's pretty much it.
That's the whole movie, yeah.
You got it, Bible. What'd you think of
In
it?
a nutshell.
She didn't like it. She thought it was stupid.
That movie dumb.
Start cutting into somebody, their eye moves.
Well, see, what Fulci liked to do is he'd get one of these razor blades, and he'd say,
Here it goes.
"Oh, I've got to cut up your titty and twist it and pull it." He was Italian, and then he would
Twist
say,
and pull it.
"Yeah, I'm going to mutilate another pair out here." And he would say, "I sold you one my fucking spaghetti."
we
I want some spaghetti, some red wine, motherfucker.
if there's one thing we like to be here at Dead Pit, though, it's culturally diverse. We like to bring that into the equation.
I was supposed to watch Cat in the Brain. You would love that movie.
So, yeah, if you're interested in doing the next episode of Tuesdays with Fulci, which I've already said 15 times what the movie's going to be, message us on Instagram or Facebook, one of the groups. Get up with us, and we'll get up with you. So, next Tuesday,
Is that going to be a shirt? Where's my fucking spaghetti, Sergio?
next Tuesday is the new one, and I thank everybody for being in here. We had an amazing chat. I appreciate it. And oh Jesus, we will see.
Jamie
you guys.
said she'd do it.
Well, hell, Jamie, let's do it.
She'll talk movies anytime. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with any female that can fucking watch Fulci films.
Yeah, I mean
hardcore.
that's pretty impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, but
So yeah,
anybody's interested, like I said, send us a message, deadpit@gmail.com, and you can co-host with one half of the Ballers and Shot Callers of Horror Talk Radio, boys.
So,
And we have
again,
Thursday night, too. I guess we need to
we need to play
this up. Vinegar Syndrome has a big sale coming. It ain't really a sale, but they're doing a pre-sale for that sale on Thursday. And that's the first time you'll be able to purchase their 4K of Thriller. They call her One Eye. And a little birdie got in my ear and said, the 4K VSU release, Uncle Bill, you're going to mark out for this, is Cloak and Dagger from 1984.
Oh.
It's pretty huge with Dabney Coleman.
Dabney fucking Coleman. That's right. From 9 to 5 fame is coming back.
You heard it
and
here
what was
first,
that movie?
folks.
Wasn't there a movie where he talked to a horse or something like that?
Oh,
Dabney Coleman.
Hot to Trot. Wasn't he in Hot to Trot?
Seeing Hot to Trot with Bobcat.
I liked that movie Short Time. It never did even come on DVD.
Oh, yeah. That movie was awesome. Where he's
Dabney
like dying
Coleman?
or something.
He's still alive, I think. I think he's in his 90s, too.
Well, we'll have to get Dabney on the show sometime. Name like Dabney. All right. Baklava, Brivadirci, Deadpit on Patreon, Deadpit over here, Deadpit over there. Watch us, buy our stuff, and everybody, I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.
Tuesday with Fulci. Give us the thumbs up.
Up your butts.
Like, subscribe, and if you subscribe, here's something else you can do. Once you subscribe, you can click the bell notification, right? And it'll notify you anytime that Dead Pit puts up new shit.
Or don't. I really don't give a if you do or
I
don't.
want you to. I want you to.
I don't care.
Let's keep our community growing here on YouTube.
I don't like it. I don't want you to